Hello and welcome back to the Airborne Lawyer YouTube channel, and welcome back to the TBM 930 World Tour. In this episode we start our journey in Tokyo, the capital city of Japan. Tokyo is the most populous metropolitan area in the world, with roughly 37.5 million residents living within its area, and some 14 million of those live within the city boundaries itself. Tokyo started life as a small fishing village named Edo, but the city developed quite quickly in the early 17th century into a local political centre of the country. And by the mid-18th century, Edo was already one of the most populous cities in the world. It was renamed Tokyo in the mid-19th century, and the city and metropolitan area then continued to grow rapidly. Today, Tokyo is the second largest urban economy worldwide by GDP, after New York City. Tokyo is home to many sites, including the Sensoji Temple, which we can see right here. Another is the Tokyo Skytree. The Skytree is the world's tallest tower and serves as a broadcasting and observation tower. It stands at 634 metres tall, making it the tallest tower and the third tallest structure in the world. And it's from this fabulous capital that we're going to go off and discover 3 other major cities, 2 of which are capital cities, in this episode. Stay tuned and I'll talk you through the route in a few moments' time. So, from Tokyo we will head west across the Sea of Japan and go and take a look at Seoul, the capital of South Korea. We will then continue our journey west and go and explore Beijing, the capital city of China. Our final flight in today's episode will take us south from Beijing down to Shanghai. So we're just taxiing out now to runway 34 left here at Tokyo Haneda. It's an absolutely vast, expansive runway that we have at our disposal here, far, far bigger than we need for something small like the TBM. But we are carrying a fair amount of fuel to get us over to Seoul, so we will still use a fair amount of it. Nice bright afternoon, fairly calm weather as well, and we have the city right in front of us as we begin our takeoff roll. There's 90 knots, just gently pulling back, and away we go. Gear up. Yeah, we do have a slight crosswind actually, 10 knots coming from the right hand side, which just caught us a little bit as we took off there. At the moment we're still flying over the expanse of the airport. There is the city in the distance. Do is switch on the autopilot, put ourselves into a flight level change climb, and we can get underway. So I'm just going to switch into nav mode on the autopilot, which will now hold our flight route. I am flying on this on VATSIM, but there's no other traffic in Japan right now, or certainly in Tokyo. It's very, very quiet. So I have decided not to do the full standard instrument departure. I'm just going to go direct to our first waypoint, which is, just bring in the flight plan. Let's take a look. yeah, Bekla. And Bekla is about 30 miles away from where we are right now. So we're going to have about 2 hours or thereabouts in the air as we make our way over to the South Korean capital. I will now time-lapse the cruise and I will speak to you when we are on our approach. Welcome back to the flight, and we are now on our approach into Seoul Incheon. Let me just show you what the lie of the land is on sim aware. So we are just here. Here is Seoul Incheon. We're just on the outskirts of the city right now, having made our way over from Tokyo Haneda. And it's dark. I actually wasn't expecting this, so the clocks went back last night. We're no longer in British summertime, so obviously everything's getting darker much sooner here in the UK, and what I'm trying to do is then do this flight over in South Korea and figure out how that works. And I thought I'd do this whole thing in daylight, but that's not happening. We've got sort of the last vestiges of the sunset just fading out on the horizon over there. But in the last episode, when we flew from Sapporo down to Tokyo, I took off in the dark, and this time we're going to land in the dark, which is quite exciting. I've done many dark landings on the TBM 930 World Tour. So I'm just preparing really for my approach and landing. Because I'm here in the UK, it's the middle of the night right now in South Korea, so things are extremely quiet on VATSIM. In fact, if I just show you again the SimAware map here, I am the only plane flying in South Korea. So I'm not too concerned about doing a full-on SID. Oh, hang on, sorry, there we go, that's the screen which I was going to show you. I'm the only plane here in South Korea, and I'm therefore not going to be too concerned about doing a full standard terminal arrival route star approach. What I'm just doing is flying straight in to the ILS approach for runway 33 right here at Seoul, and that looks a bit like this. So you can see here this waypoint NPIL, where we need to be at 7,000 feet, and we're going to pick up the ILS from there and fly straight into runway 33 right. So we'll be at 7,000 feet, and I'm then largely just going to follow the ILS in from there to keep it nice and simple. So just looking at that over here, you can see I put in ILS 33 right on the flight management computer. We've got NPIL. NPIL is our next waypoint. We're just 14.6 miles away from NPIL right now, and I'm descending down to 7,000 feet, and that blue line there is just telling me that I should level off at 7,000 feet nicely by the time we get to NPIL. What I'm just going to do as well down here is just pull up the ILS frequency, just double check it's all, I mean it should be 108.9, but 33 right, there we are, 108.9. I'm just going to stick that into nav 1. So that I will get a readout on my navigation display of the localizer once it picks it up. But yeah, this is night flying. Haven't done very much of this on the TBM 930 World Tour. In fact, I don't think I've done. I think I did a night landing into Washington DC. I mean, that's quite a long way back. We're in South Korea now, so that's a long way back. So, about to go through 10,000 feet. I will put on the landing lights very shortly. We'll do that. You may have also seen whilst I was en route on the time-lapse, it'll be interesting to see what this looks like, but we did need to adjust our altitude a fair bit because the headwinds were extremely strong. At one point they were up to 125, 130 knot headwinds, and that was really impacting on our progress. So I tried climbing to see if they got a bit lighter, but they didn't, so I then reduced my altitude down to the mid-20s, and that was a lot better. And just also going to quickly do is I'll just take you back to Navigraph screen here to look at the airport. It's a big airport, and we are going to be landing on 33 right, so obviously far bigger than you might normally expect me to land on in the TBM 930 World Tour. I normally go for small airports, but I'm going for the major international one again here, and we're just going to land on 33 right just here. So main reason for checking that is to avoid what happened when I landed at Petropavlovsk-Kamchatsky in the last episode, where there was some confusion as to what was the taxiway and what was the runway. Check out the last episode to see the drama of that landing. What I want to do this time is just make sure I'm definitely lined up with the correct ones. So there's going to be 4 runways, 2 on the left, 2 on the right, and I'm landing on the runway which is furthest to the right. Helpfully, however, I am also going to have the ILS available. So what I'm actually just going to do now is just switch over to heading mode and just hold the heading that I've currently got and start. I've just switched over here. The active nav is now on VOR1, which is tuned to the ILS on 33 right, so we're just waiting to pick that up. Not picking up just yet, so I'm going to go back to nav mode, and we'll just continue following the line on the navigation display just here. So what I now need to do is continue my descent. I need to be at 3,600 by Pibak, so you can see Pibak just here. And if I show you on the chart, you can see that by Pibak I need to be at 3,600 feet. So just transition back into the sim, and we'll continue our descent down a little bit. Select 3,600, and I'll do a flight level change. We're going down a little bit too steeply there, so just slow that descent up a bit. So you should now be picking up the ILS. I'm just going to again switch over to heading mode and take a look. Yeah, there we are. There is the localizer. But I don't have the glide slope yet. I'm just going to again just keep it on the nav actually. I certainly can't see the runway right now, so I'm relying on the ILS to guide me in here at this point. I can see now those that so I've selected 3,600 to descend down to, and that blue line again is telling me that I'm going to reach that just before payback, which is exactly what we want. Take a look over at the chart. You can see we're nicely on this line. We're approaching payback, and we're going to be right on profile here. And after that, we're going to continue our descent down to the runway. So it looks like we now have the glide slope showing. I can see this diamond here. So I'm actually going to turn off the autopilot and the yaw damper and the flight directors and just go straight over to flying the plane manually at this point. And I'm just going to be following the ILS in. I need to keep this line in the centre. That's the localizer, and I need this diamond to be on that centre line. Just there, and I will then be descending at the right rate. Again, huge capacity here for this to be very, very disorientating. I can't see anything. This is the challenge of flying at night. My landing lights on, but they're not making themselves known or making themselves felt right now. I normally expect to see some kind of volumetric lights shining into the murky night, but that isn't happening at this point in time. So again, just on the navigation display, this line here is now just slightly to my left. That says the runway centre line is slightly to my left. The diamond, however, is pretty much bang on that centre line there, so I'm descending at the right rate, but I've just got to compensate and go to the left a little bit. Now the reason that I might be slightly to the right of the centre line is because of this wind here. So 9 knot wind coming from about 10 o'clock, which might just be pushing me off centre a little. It's not a particularly strong wind, and it's certainly not perpendicular in terms of being a crosswind, but I am obviously in quite a small plane, so that is why I'm feeling that. And I am not following what's out the window at all at this stage. It is all about the localizer and glide slope. I don't even have the flight directors on. I'm just doing this entirely by hand, as it were. That's 6 miles to go. Still can't see anything. Very, very challenging landing this by all accounts. Just slowing up now. Going through 2,000 feet. I'm going to put the gear down. First stage of flaps. So the line of the localizer nicely in the centre of the display, just fractionally under the glide slope, just gives a little bit of power to get back on the glide slope. And now just 4 miles to go. And suddenly, out the window, I can see something. So I'm actually now going to slow up a bit more, put out full flaps, ready for landing, and I think I am getting a visual now on the runway. Very much looks like it to me. So I'm now quite steep. I'm well above the glide slope, but I can at least see the runway, so that helps. Here comes the glide slope again. Very gradually. Okay, so now I've got 2 white, 2 red on the left-hand side with the PAPI lights. I'm now just holding 85 knots all the way in. Marker beacons going there. I think it was the middle, wasn't it? There's the inner marker beacon. And it looks like we're just going to manage to get down nice and smoothly. Another long flight for the TBM 930, and the dogs are welcoming me to Seoul. Now this is a huge airport, and it's going to take me a little while to park up. And it's dark. So what we're going to do is skip ahead to daylight and go and take a look at Seoul itself with the drone, and then we'll be on our way heading off to Beijing in a few moments' time. Now unfortunately the scenery on Flight Sim 2020 is yet to give the special photogrammetry treatment to Seoul, so the graphics here aren't in quite the same detail as they were in Tokyo, but you can at least see just here the stadium built for the 1988 Summer Olympic Games. That's the first time I remember hearing about Seoul. It put it on the map for me, so it's well worth seeing on our flying visit on the TBM 930 World Tour. Seoul is smaller relative to Tokyo, but to be honest, that's not really saying much. The city has a population of 9.9 million people, and it's the world's 4th largest metropolitan economy after Tokyo, New York and LA. However, it has a very high quality of life. Apparently, in recent years, Seoul has been ranked as the most livable city in the whole of Asia, and that may well be in part down to the economic strength of South Korea. A lot of things are made in this country, and many familiar products and brands have their corporate headquarters right here in this city: Samsung, LG, Hyundai, and many others besides. We're now in the Namsan Mountain Park, and this is where the North Seoul Tower stands, or rather should stand, but as I say, the graphics haven't quite caught up with Seoul just yet. Time now to get back in the cockpit and head off to another capital city, Beijing. So welcome back to the cockpit. We are just holding short of runway 33 right, and as you can hear in the background we have an air traffic controller online, and we are just waiting to speak to him to request our clearance. Just waiting for a gap in the communications to get a word in. It's fantastic when you hear all the local languages being spoken. Really adds to the immersion and the sense that you've actually travelled somewhere. Incheon control, Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha, type TBM 930, holding short of runway 33 right at Golf, requesting clearance to Beijing Capital, QNH 1020.
Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha, standby for clearance, you're number 1.
Roger, Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha.
Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha, clear to Beijing Seoul International Airport, departure on a 33 right. via Nopik 1 Alpha, Nopik 2 Alpha departure, then H5, clock level 280, squawk 5412.
Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha cleared to Beijing Capital Airport from 33 right, Nopik to Alpha departure, and then as filed, climbing flight level 280 and squawking 5412.
Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha, relevation correct, running 33 right, line up and wait.
Line up and wait, 33 right, Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha. Okay. So the one thing I just need to do is put in my transponder code, which I noted down as 5412. That's very easily forgotten. Okay, so there we are. Okay, so he's told me to line up and wait on the runway. Once again, the runway just feels absolutely huge for a little plane like the TBM 930. So just double check here. We've got the landing lights on, we've got the strobes all ready to go. What I'm just going to do is try and pull up my departure, but I'm not having much luck actually. I can't seem to get it on here. It is not showing any departures for 33 right, which is a bit of a problem. What we're going to do is a departure called Nopik 2 Alpha. So if I take you over to the Navigraph screen, I've got a whole load here of departures, and here is Nopik 2 Alpha. So we're going to take off, we're going to turn to 333 degrees and then continue out towards Nopik. Now I should be able to put all of this into my flight management computer, but at the moment it's just simply not playing ball. So I am going to instead set 333 degrees into the autopilot. So the flight directors and the autopilot will now follow 333 degrees, and we're going to do that for 7 miles. Let's see if I can, whilst I'm waiting for my takeoff clearance, let's see if I can get those waypoints in. If I put in AD020, there we go, that's the first one. AD050 is the second one.
Control TV 8920 holding 34 right.
8920 runway 34 right, line up and wait.
And then the third one is AP140.
Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha, wind count runway 33 right, clock for takeoff.
Clear takeoff 33 right, Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha.
8920 expect a 3-minute delay.
3-minute delay for TV 8920.
So that delay actually just worked in our favour there, because I just had to do a little bit of work on programming in our flight route, and I'll talk you through in a second what I was just doing there. In just a second, but first of all I'm just looking for 90 knots as usual, which is our rotate speed. There is 90 knots. I'm just going to pull back gently and away we go. So positive rate, gear can come up. And going to pop the autopilot straight on.
Korean 912 descend 6000.
And the flaps can come in. And I'm going to switch over now to a flight level change climb, or climb at 150 knots. So we're now following the desired route, and let me just quickly show you what I was doing a few moments ago. So you heard me mention AD020, AD050 and AP140. So I have manually, I couldn't find this particular departure route in the flight management computer, so instead I've just put it in manually by just typing in each waypoint. So I'm going straight ahead on 333 degrees, then I'm going to turn left to 279 degrees, then left to 253 degrees, going to AD020, 050 and then AP140 and then out to Nopik. Now if you take a look at what the navigation display is now showing, you can see each of those waypoints. AD020, AD050, AP140 and out to Nopik. So I'm now following the desired route. And what I could also do, just for good measure, is bring up the departure chart over here, and you can see the little pink aeroplane just there is following the route as planned. And what you can also see for good measure is we are flying 333 degrees, which is all good. So quite a busy sequence of events there. Certainly by the standards of the TBM 930 World Tour, one of the things I like doing in flying the TBM 930 is kind of chilling out a bit more. Doing full-on air traffic control when I'm flying a big airliner is absolutely fantastic, but with the TBM 930 it's been quite good just flying to really remote places where air traffic controllers aren't online.
To clear the IDS runway 32 right approach is default established.
So just over here is the demilitarized zone between North and South Korea. Again, you can just see that on the map down here, look. That trio of lines indicates where the demilitarized zone is. If I just zoom out on the map, you can see a solid line right the way across, and it's just out the window over there. Beautiful clear weather, which is all good. A bit different to the weather that we flew in on. And let's hope that it stays this way all the way to Beijing. The flight time is going to be around about 2 hours, but I will now time-lapse the cruise and we'll speak to you on our approach in just a few moments' time. back to flight. You find us now just a little bit south of Beijing. We are flying into Beijing Capital Airport, and I can show you just over here the route that we have taken so far. Here we are. So we started out over here in Seoul and we've flown across towards Beijing, and we're now just a little bit south of Beijing Capital International. There's also Beijing Daxing International just here, but we're going to be going into Beijing Capital International. So we're caught up in some pretty murky clouds at the moment, and as you may have noticed on the time-lapse of the cruise whilst we were flying, we are now working off meters rather than feet, because that's how things work in China. Nonetheless, thankfully, the charts that we're working to do include references to feet, which has been helpful in planning the approach. I'll just show you on the Navigraph chart just here how that's looking. So we're just the pink arrow here. We're currently just leaving the flight chart. Actually, we're just going to be we're basically on an intercept course with the runway centerline, which I'll talk you through in a moment. We've come in over Dumat and then made our way in to these various waypoints, and now we are going to be flying the ILS Yankee approach into runway 01 at Beijing Capital. So for that we are flying to Alpha Alpha 464, where we need to be at 6,890 feet, and then we will make our way in following the ILS. So 6,890 feet. I've rounded that up to 6,900 feet, and that is what we are heading down to at the moment here on the autopilot. We are just 15 miles away from Alpha Alpha 464. If I just show you the navigation display there, you can see we're on our way over here. What I just did is I took a bit of a shortcut and put ourselves on an intercept course. So a few things that I'm just going to do whilst we're making our way through this murky, turbulent cloud. I'm just going to pull up the airport info. The code is ZBAA for Beijing Capital, and check the frequencies, and the ILS frequency for runway 01 is right at the bottom here. It's 108.5. Just pop that in the active on nav 1, and I can just cross-check that actually on the chart over here. You can see 108.5 is the frequency, so that means we will pick up the ILS. Very much like when we landed in Seoul, it looks like we're going to have another cloudy, murky landing, potentially with quite poor visibility. I can't see anything out the window here. In fact, we've had a little bit of ice gathering on the wing. I have turned on the de-icers. Yeah, very thick and quite cold cloud that we're flying through at the moment. So probably just another sort of 8 to 10 minutes, I think, on the flight. Left to run. Once we are at Alpha Alpha 464, in just 8 miles time, we will start looking out for the ILS readout on our primary flight display, and we will follow that all the way in to the runway. So once again, flying this entirely using instruments, just as we did back in Seoul. Let me just transition back, sorry, to the cockpit there. To be perfectly honest, whilst you were watching an extended cut of the approach chart there, you haven't missed much, because this is all we're looking at out the window. We're just looking at grey, murky cloud and a little bit of ice forming on the wings there. We have got our landing lights on. I've also had to turn the cabin lights on because it was a bit gloomy without them on. And I've just adjusted, I'm not sure what transition altitude is actually, but I've just adjusted for local temperature and pressure. It is 1023 at the present time. So we're going to be flying quite a long final. It's going to be around about a 25-mile final, actually, all the way into the runway. I'm judging that looking over here at the navigation display. You can see this arc, which shows 25 miles away, and the airport is just beyond that, so it's 25 to 30 miles away still to the airport, but obviously in flying terms that's nothing. So we are now picking up the localizer. You can see just down here it says INJ. Over here on the chart, INJ, that's the identifier for the ILS, so we are tuned in correctly. What I'm just going to do is flick over to heading mode. There we are. We are now picking up the localizer. That's exactly what we wanted. The localizer, again, displayed with this green arrow. I want that green line to be nicely in the centre of this display. At the moment, that is basically indicating where the runway is relative to us. It's over just to our right. So I'm just going to turn very slightly to the right. So I'm now doing to intercept. Oh, are we finally dropping out of the cloud? Yes! Hooray! That's a relief. We are also now we're also now picking up the glide slope. So we'll start descending. Start pulling back on the speed. Well, that's quite a relief. We can actually see something. That bank of clouds seemed to go on forever. Just going to look to chase down that glide slope a bit. Just there we are. Just adjusting using the throttle. I'm just adjusting my rate of descent to get that green diamond right in the centre there. We've also now just gone off the localizer slightly, so let's correct that. Plenty of time. Such a long final. We've got 16 miles left to run. Start slowing up. I think you can start to see the airport just over there. Look, it's quite. Yeah, there's the airport. It's in the distance, but it's good to be able to see it. You can start to see Beijing over on our left-hand side over here. All very good. Let's see if we can get the approach hold to work. Sometimes it works on the TBM, other times it doesn't. But this time, hooray! Yes, it's working. So I've now hit the approach hold. And it is now going to hold that localizer and glide slope for me, which is good, just to ease the pilot workload a little bit. So there's no one else on VATSIM right now in the area, so I will do announcements, or I will do an announcement at least once we're on short final, but at the moment the airspace around here is pretty quiet. Just checking that out over here. Again on the SimAware map, you can see we're just the solitary aeroplane here in this part of China. Almost certainly that is down to the time difference between here and China. This isn't, I'm not flying this in at the real time of day, the accurate time of day over in China. China's about 8 hours ahead of the UK, which means right now it's the middle of the night. So I've got a visual now on runway 01. Right in front of us, you can see that the autopilot approach hold is working nicely. Even from this distance I can see two white and 2 red to the left hand side of the runway, which is exactly what we want. Just taking a quick look at a map of the airport. Not that screen, let's try this one. Here we are. We're coming in on 01. There's also 36 right and 36 left. So, applying that map to what we can see out the window, that makes sense. We can see runway 01 here, there's 36 right and there's 36 left. Another huge airport to be flying into in such a small plane. This was the airport that I flew into in real life about 10.5 years ago. When I visited China, I flew to Beijing on a British Airways 747-400. Golf Charlie India Victor Kilo. Obviously that aircraft has since been retired, and it's also been broken apart and scrapped. And I actually have a few small token pieces of Golf Charlie India Victor Kilo, the plane which I flew on out to Beijing a decade ago. I did an Instagram post about it actually. I got a gift for my 40th birthday, which was a few bits of a 747-400, and honestly I could not have been more delighted. So I'm just really starting to slow up the plane now, just 5 miles to go. Get out the first stage of flaps. You'll notice I'm hardly doing anything here because I've still got it on the autopilot. I've been wanting to check actually that the approach hold does work on the TBM. I've had a few problems with it before, so it's good to know that it is working. I could have done with that actually when I landed in Seoul, because the weather there was atrocious in terms of visibility. I am now going to take control of the aircraft and just fly the rest of the way visually. Beijing Capital traffic, TBM Golf Tango Echo Whiskey Alpha is short final for runway 01. Beijing Capital traffic. Pretty certain I'm just talking to myself there actually, because I don't think anyone else is online or anywhere close to this airport on that sim. But still, it's the right thing to do. Okay, we got out the second stage of flaps. It's quite interesting actually when flying the TBM 930, because obviously you come in quite slowly relative to a big airliner. You know, you're coming in at 85 knots. That's the typical VREF. It's really quite slow, and when you're flying into a massive airport like this, you really feel that difference in speed. It feels like we're really creeping slowly towards the runway here. middle marker beacon going there, and then we'll get the inner marker beacon very shortly, I expect. There it is. Okay, so here we are. We've arrived in Beijing. So I'm going to go ahead and park up the plane and get ready to turn the plane around and head off down to Shanghai. And whilst I'm doing that, let's get out the drone and go and take a look at Beijing. So Beijing has also hosted the Olympics. This is the stadium from the 2008 Summer Games, and just below it you can see the Olympic Park. I have been to Beijing. It's a little while ago now, but I have been there in real life. And I have visited Tiananmen Square, which we see in front of us right here, which leads up to the Forbidden City, which is the historic centre of Imperial Beijing, a vast complex of opulent imperial gardens and temples which were constructed from 1406 to 1420. This complex was the former Chinese imperial palace and winter residence of the Emperor of China from the Ming dynasty to the end of the Qing dynasty between 1420 and 1924, since which time it has been basically a museum. It's been under the charge of the Palace Museum, and it was declared a World Heritage Site in 1987. If you fancy visiting the Forbidden City, I strongly recommend you allow a full day and make an early start. From the old to the very new, this is the China Zun Tower, which is the tallest building in the city, which was topped out in August 2017. So there's a lot of new stuff in Beijing as well as an awful lot of history. But the tower is likely to remain the tallest building in Beijing for some time to come, as in 2018 Chinese authorities capped new projects in the central business district of Beijing to a height of no more than 180 metres in a bid to reduce congestion. Now just head south from Tiananmen Square a short distance and you get to the Temple of Heaven, which we can see just in front of us here. This was one of my favourite places in Beijing. There were loads of people sat out around the Temple of Heaven playing mahjong, playing music, dancing, just enjoying their weekends, and it was a really peaceful, tranquil, fun place to go to escape the hubbub of the city. Okay, so time to leave Beijing and head south to Shanghai. We're going to take off from the same runway which we landed on just a short while ago, runway 01, and once we're in the air we're going to be heading to the south and down to Shanghai. Nice clear day, so let's push that throttle lever forward and get ourselves into the air. It's 90 knots, rotate, and away we go. Gear up. And I'm just going to hold the runway heading for the moment whilst we just climb out. And there's no other traffic on VATSIM right now, so I'm not too worried about following a full standard instrument departure. Instead what we're just going to do is turn to the east to start with, and then we'll turn to the south. That avoids the other runways just over to the left hand side of Beijing Capital. Bring in the flaps. is the airport. Nice tight turn there. I don't even know if we've flown the whole length of the runway, really. And the joys of flying something small like the TBM. Okay, so we're now gaining altitude nicely, building up a bit of speed, and we'll shortly be on our planned route down to Shanghai. So I'm going to once again time-lapse the cruise, and I will speak to you on our approach very shortly. So welcome back to the flights and welcome to Shanghai. We've got Shanghai over to the left of us right here. In fact, just over there, I think you can just about make out the Shanghai Tower and the other skyscrapers right in the centre of the city. And let me just quickly show you exactly where we are. Here on the chart, here is Shanghai, and we are just on a downwind leg to fly into Shanghai Hongqiao Airport. We're not flying into Pudong, we are flying into Hongqiao. So we are just flying a downwind here, then we're going to turn onto our base leg of 093 degrees, and then we'll fly finals into 36 right, 2 runways at this airport, and we'll be on the right hand runway. So I am again on VATSIM, but there's no other aircraft flying at the moment, so I am going now to turn left to 093 to fly our base leg. And once we turn finals, we need to be at around about 2,000 feet. So we're around about at that point now. Just going to keep the speed up just for the time being. Got about a 10-mile final to fly, so I'll keep the speed up for now. And what I'm just going to do is bring up the frequency for the ILS and pop that into our primary flight display. So 36 right is 110.3, and there it is. I've now got it showing on the primary flight display. Once again, using the green arrows and lines here, I can find my way onto our final approach. So I'm just going to turn to an intercept heading now. Just turn it slightly to the left, go to 070 degrees. Maybe a little bit more, let's go to 050. And now I'm just waiting for that localizer to come across so that we can establish on the final approach into 36 right. Slowly letting the speed come off a little bit here. Here comes the localizer. Let's see if the approach hold is going to work this time. No, not this time. So I'm going to turn off the autopilot, turn off the flight directors, and I'll just fly it manually from here, but that's fine because I can even see the runway just in front of me there. So gently pulling back on the speed. Just keeping the nose up. Just want to hold 2,000 feet until I meet the glide slope, which is coming up. Again, the green diamond on the primary flight display needs to be in the middle, and it nearly is. So I can start getting into a gradual descent. So there's Hongqiao Airport and there's Pudong Airport in Shanghai. Shanghai Pudong is the major international airport, but Hongqiao is still very, very busy. Two runways, quite close together, as you can see just in front of me. And we are now just 5 miles away from the runway threshold. So it's quite funny really with the TBM 930 World Tour, the contrasts in places we visit. In the last episode I started on the uninhabited island of Attu Island at the end of the Aleutian Islands on my way out from Alaska. This episode has been anything but uninhabited. It's been all about big cities. Tokyo, Seoul, Beijing, and now Shanghai. And again, just over there you can see the skyscrapers of Shanghai looming large. We will go and see those at the beginning of the next episode. We'll go and explore the city with the drone before continuing our journey down to Taipei and Hong Kong. And in case this whets the appetite, I do have some Kai Tak scenery for Hong Kong, so we're going to be taking it back to 1998 when Kai Tak was still operational, and we'll be flying, hopefully, the infamous IGS-13 approach into Hong Kong's old international airport in Kowloon. So I'll put the gear down now and get the speed right down. Holding the nose up, very slightly shallow, there we are, back to 2 white, 2 red on the pappies at the left hand side. Full flaps now. Nice gentle headwind on approach here, so it's quite a smooth approach in at the moment. And now off the power completely and just holding that nose up. There we are. and this being the TBM 930, I can just do an abrupt turn off the runway like this and taxi in. So I'll turn off the landing lights and turn off the strobes. And we'll just park up over here and shut the plane down. So thank you very much for watching this episode of the TBM 930 World Tour. I'll be back very soon with the next episode where we'll be heading down to Taipei and Hong Kong. And in the meantime, do look out for more short and long haul flying, both on MSFS 2020 and on Prepare 3D V5 here on the Airborne Lawyer YouTube channel. Thanks for watching and speak to you soon.